Okay, we're good to go.
All right. Thank you all for joining us on our very first webinar in our month-long series of webinars. This is Pre-Purchase Homeowner Support with George Myers. George has been an organizational development consultant with Habitat International, and he practically wrote the book on how to on the Family Services Manual. So we are very, very lucky to have him with us today, and
you are now muted.
We'll also be presenting our webinar on Thursday as well on post-purchase support. So let me know if you need any help getting that registered for that. Also, Sam is going to be muting your line once George gets started on his presentation, but if you have questions, there's a chat feature and a Q&A
you are now
feature. If you have
unmuted.
a question, you can write it down real quick there, and Sam will be able to ask or save your question, and George will be able to open up the lines at appropriate times to get your input and your questions. So if there's nothing else, let's get started. George, I really appreciate you being here, and please begin.
Well, thank you, Amy, and hello, everybody.
You are now muted.
I'm honored, I guess, to be the first person out of the chute here this month, so we'll be getting going. I'm assuming that since you're all on mute that if you are having any difficulties seeing any of the slides or anything, you can chat into Sam, and hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. I've gone on to what's going to be slide number 3, so hopefully everybody's looking at the screen that just says the format for our call today. And we're going to just do a quick review of the basics. We're scheduled to go for an hour. So I don't want to spend too much time on, I'm assuming I've got some people with a lot of experience and knowledge already on the line, which is why I want you to assist with all the presentation and discussion that we'll have. I rarely like to be the total expert, because I think the real experience and solutions and ways things work are always, best found out of the field. And my years at Habitat International taught me that typically the solutions to situations and problems and working things out come up from the experience of the affiliates that are out there working with our families and home buyers. So anyways, we will spend a few minutes here on the basics. Then I really just sort of came up with a handful of common challenges and successful practices. So we'll review through some of that. There'll be a little bit of a wrap-up, and then we'll hopefully have a good chunk of the call for just questions and discussions. And again, usually that's a very rich time, and I want to make sure folks have a chance to talk. So that's what we're going to do. And this will be archived. I should mention that quickly. Amy's told me that we will be able to make this available afterwards, so both the recording and the slides will be available at least for a period of time, and she's the expert on that. I wanted to just talk again about, this is the pre-purchase section. We are going to defer questions and topics till January 8th which is Thursday, of course, for the post-purchase session, and hopefully a lot of you will be back on that call again. So again, the definition we're working with today is pre-purchase. This will be the period of time after the board approves an application where you've accepted a home buyer or a homeowner to be, or a homeowner in a repair program, up to the point where the house is completed, so right up to the point of where that house is done and you're dedicating the home. So that's what we're going to really focus on right now, and this should fill up the hour, no problem. I wanted to start again on our review section, just as I'm on the slide 5 on the Habitat International definition of homeowner support. You'll notice I'm using homeowner support rather than family support, and I have been in communication with some of the ODCs, and as you probably know, there is an ODC at Habitat International that just is working in this area right now. And one of the changes that's happening as they're reviewing and refreshing all of the affiliate operation manuals is this switch from the word family to homeowner. So that's something that, again, you're not going to be required, of course, to do this, but the feeling from, and this actually came out of some affiliates in Michigan that really started pushing for this, was the feeling was that this is really talking about people who own houses, whether we're building a brand new house for them or we're doing a Brush with Kindness or a repair project with them. We're still working with homeowners. And it also does get away from concerns that were being raised about people who either are not in traditional families or affiliates that are building for single people. And they don't have a family, or they're two adults and they don't have children. So some people were not feeling totally comfortable with the word family, so they're going to be migrating to homeowner support. The other thing, just to let you know what's going on, is they are doing, I know it's probably been a while, and some of you have been wondering when Habitat International will update those affiliate operation manuals. And what I learned just this morning was that they're in the final review processes, and these will be released at the national conference. So any of you that are at the national conference or soon thereafter, the updated manuals should be available then, which I think is great news. So there's a long diversion, but our definition here is in front of us: a set of programs and practices designed and administered by the local Habitat affiliates that provide homeowners with the procedures, support, and skills necessary for buying a Habitat home and becoming successful long-term homeowners. Family support programs, that should be homeowner support programs is what it will change to, include sweat equity, pre- and post-purchase education, mentorship, construction skills training, and more. So that's sort of the basic that we're going to work through. Some of you may have seen these types of principles before. As I go on to the next slide, is really talking about some of the evolution and changes that we've had in Habitat. We really are striving for partnership, not paternalism. We're, of course, very famous for our hand up, not a hand out, that we're not a charity. We are trying to break the cycle of poverty in Habitat, not maintain it. You're not punished, or there's no punitive work for getting ahead or earning more money or getting a raise or getting a new job or whatever. We really believe that this housing, of course, the housing we provide or the housing repair will help people exceed and escape the poverty. And this goes into empowering, not fostering dependence. And we're going to try and demonstrate and model what we feel a good home owner would be, not preach at people. Also, we're going to focus on strengths and capacities, not needs and deficits. And I think this is also where Habitat has always led the field, that we're not looking at what people don't have, but we're looking for what they do have. And as they come to us as partners, not clients, that's really the key focus for what we're trying to do. Some of the other ways we've evolved, as I just mentioned, we're moving from family to homeowner. We used to talk about family nurture, and probably some of you on the phone have been around long enough that you remember, or maybe you still do call it a family nurture program. And it was probably about 10 years ago that, again, as people talked and as affiliates talked to Habitat International, we changed to the idea of family support rather than nurturing, that was more of a partnership term. Some of the other things that have changed over the years, again, some of you may remember, way back when we used to allow families to do sweat equity after they'd moved into the house. But a lot of times we had a pretty high number of hours required for sweat equity, and a lot of times the families couldn't get them done, or the homeowners couldn't get them done beforehand. And we just found out that was an idea that didn't work very well. And again, it's a good example of affiliates telling us that that doesn't work very well. So that recommendation was also changed a few years ago. So Sam, I'm just wondering whether there's any questions or comments, or if anybody has anything that they'd want to chime in on here. Maybe we can unmute for a minute.
Sure. Sure thing. Let me do that.
You are now unmuted.
So,
okay.
hopefully you've been unmuted now. Does anybody have any comments or things they'd like to offer up about sort of the way that they approach the basic principles of doing family support or homeowner support? Okay. Well, leave them unmuted for a second, Sam, and I'll just go on here because we'll look at this quote. This came from an executive director. Our family support services are all about helping people to not need us, which I think resonates with all those principles we just talked about. So if we do our job well, we're going to really work ourselves out of a job. So it's a test now. What I want you to do is hopefully all of you out there have a piece of paper, and you can take a look at this word in front of you, these letters in front of you, and I want you to take up a pen, and I want you to write down just one word. So again, take a look at this and write down just one word. And again, just to clarify, what I want you to do is write down just one word.
Rebecca just popped up on chat and said she lost audio. Is anybody out there? Can you just... Anybody at all? All right, Nathan can hear, so that, thank you, Nathan, for replying.
Amy, this is Walletta and Tyler. We can hear as well.
Good.
All right, thank you. I'll just ask Rebecca if she will maybe just hang up and try again.
Okay, Walletta, what did you write down?
Just one word. You know, I wasn't sure what you were getting at. I mean, based on this word that we see on the screen, is that what you mean?
Well, what did you write? Well, somebody just said who just spoke a moment ago.
It's Janice.
And what did you write down, Janice?
Just one word.
That's right. That's what I told you to do. So, Janice, did you just pay attention, or have you done this before?
I was just paying attention.
Thank you very much. So, why did I do that to you, Janice?
Just to see that we were listening, and also to test if we could translate, I guess, what you were saying.
Right. And how many of you have had times when you've worked with a person who's, applying for a house or has been accepted for a house, and you think you've just told them what to do, and they don't do what you ask them to? So, this is the example here is just to, again, just try and raise some consciousness about the fact that a lot of times we feel that we communicate something. I did ask you guys to 3 times. I told you to write down just one word. And anybody else do that, or is Janice the only Gold Star pupil today?
Janice is the star.
Good. So, but this is really, it's a common thing, and those of you that have worked with us for a while, I'm sure there's days where you just think, I've talked till I'm blue in the face, or I've told them again and again, or here I thought we had this figured out last month, and now we're still back to the drawing board with this person. Communication is probably the biggest skill to bring to this work, is I guess what I would say. And knowing how to communicate well, patiently, and testing for understanding, and to just know that at times, whether it's language or something else that just hasn't worked with the family and the people you're working with. So just think about that, because we all get guilty of that at times. So good. All right, Sam, if we can mute folks up again.
Okay.
And
you are now
I'll do a little
muted.
bit more presentation here, and then we're going to move into some of the topics and go from there. So the quality assurance does talk about family support and homeowner support services. I went through the list from 2014, and of course, one of the bywords right now in the whole family services, homeowner services area of Habitat is things will change and things will continue to change. We are in a huge shift over the past few years. But anyway, so what hopefully your executive directors or you yourselves answered on the quality assurance checklist this year is that your affiliates are all providing some sort of homeowner support services. The QA says that the affiliate should have operational committees. It doesn't specify that family services has to be those committees. It's sort of vague about just whether you have committees or not, but I would always suggest that this is a great and important area to have committees in. You should have a written policy prohibiting discrimination and harassment of either current homeowners or people in the process or even applicants. You should have a written sweat equity policy. You should have a written safety policy for the work site, since we're going to be asking folks to go out and build on the houses with us. And there should be a confidential record retention system. Excuse me. Particularly around the applications. So that's definitely a big part of what items can be kept and who can see them and what happens with that. And I'll just tell a story on that one. I was serving as an interim director in an affiliate this summer, and they actually had a really nice, in my office as the director, I had a nice locked up filing cabinet with all the mortgages and all the applications, and everything was really great. Two things happened in the course of the summer. One, I went looking for the application of the current partner family that we were building with. The question had come up, and I couldn't find that application. And I went and asked the chair of the selection committee, and she said, oh, well, the family partner has that application. I said, do they have everything? And she says, oh, yeah, they have the entire file. So this person's entire even though the person had been accepted and was just working on sweat equities, the committee person had the entire file, and and we had no control over that at the affiliate. So, that was one of the things I worked on changing with them, was to make sure that family support person had just basically the information that they would need to work with the family, and they didn't need Social Security numbers and all the other things that are in the applications. Sort of the same thing happened in the affiliate was doing Brush with Kindness programs, and one day I realized that all these Brush with Kindness applications were coming in, and they weren't in the same file cabinet. And it turned out that they were lying in a pile on the construction manager's desk, because he was the one that was working with the families and working on the scope of work for the projects. And again, I was like, okay, let's change this. There's a lot of confidential information in these files. People have trusted with us, and let's make sure that we respect their privacy and make sure that nothing could happen with their information. So that was a big one for this particular affiliate. Maybe you guys have had some other experiences, and we can talk about those in a few minutes. So a big important one. All right, we are going to talk a little bit about topics. These are sort of the buckets that I came up with. Just to let we'll be sort of processing through these a little bit at a time. And Sam, I think what we'll do is we'll just unmute, or I'll check in with you whether there's any chat questions that have come up as we talk through these. And I think we're doing good on time, so we'll go ahead with this, and then still have some time for some overall questions and discussion at the end. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Do we have anything in the chat box right now?
I'm not seeing any chat questions as of now.
Okay, and Amy, anything you want to chime in on before we move forward?
You are now unmuted.
We're also we're on mute right here. So
I just know Amy knows a good bit about family services too, so she's a great resource for affiliates there in that great state of Texas. Anything you want to add to, Amy, on anything I've said so far?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, guys. So committees and staff. One thing that I have seen in my years for Habitat, I first started working actually with Twin Cities
You are now
Habitat
muted.
in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was on their Family Support and Selection Committee back in about 1992, 93, and the committee was everything. There was one woman was working on staff. Everything else was being handled by the committees. They actually had 5 separate committees for 5 different regions of the Twin Cities area. They covered 8 counties, and so we had probably 40 or 50 people volunteering and working on family selection with them. Now fast forward to today, and they have 4 or 5 affiliate staff people. They usually have 2 or 3 VISTA or AmeriCorps folks. And they have a whole other wing of the organization that's taking care of the Brush with Kindness repair programs. And they probably have about 15 committee people now. So the staff has really transitioned, taken this on in a big way. I actually left the committee because we, even in the 90s, had gone from where the committee was getting the applications and we were deciding who we'd go out and interview and go out and do homeowner visits. And then we also had the power to be able to make recommendations. And we gave back to that single staff person who we thought should be given to the board and approved for a house. As they added their own staff, what happened at this case was that the staff started screening the applications, running all the credit reports, meeting with the families ahead of time, and the staff also said that they felt that they needed to make the decisions. So the committee really became, in the mid-90s, that we went out and we did a homeowner visit. We were given a file and assigned to go out and do homeowner visits. And whereas that was still really satisfying, it was a big change and they didn't need as many of us. And I bowed out at that point. I just really felt that, I was no longer needed as a volunteer and a committee person in the affiliate and moved on. And I've seen this happen in many other affiliates. I think there is a call out there on my Habitat site about just keeping families or keeping volunteers involved here in homeowners. So that to me is a big, important part. It's tough to keep committees going. It's tough to keep committees trained. It's tough to keep committees active. But it can really, really, really help the program go. And the last thing I'll say on this is as volunteers come and work with the families, probably many of you have seen this happen, this is a hugely rewarding, eye-opening, and often a life-changing part of the volunteers' experience with Habitat of literally rubbing shoulders and getting to know these low-income families who have come to Habitat to be partners with us. So, Sam, any chat questions out there? Any questions on that?
I'm not seeing any chat questions.
Okay, and again, we can come back at the end here and just do some discussion around any of these topics too. So keep those questions in mind if you'd like to bring something up. Okay, process flow. So again, what we're talking about here, and this is where the homeowner support really comes in. These are really prospective homeowners, of course, at this point. They have not closed on the house. But the process is what's supposed to happen from approval to closing. And I think most of you know that there's a lot supposed to happen in there. But this is really an area where I've seen affiliates really do well when they sort of have a checklist to go forward on and really are clear on what has to happen through this whole phase. The other thing to just sort of keep in mind, if we were doing a longer presentation or a workshop someplace, I'd be asking you to write up a whole list, but I'm sure you know in your brains, some of the many, many things that have to happen and the people that need to be involved. I think the last thing I'll say on this is the critical thing that often is a struggle for affiliates, particularly when they're using a family partner who usually is the key person, as a volunteer to help the family. If you don't have a staff person doing it, you hopefully have an assigned family partner. It's really critical to engage that person really early on in the process. Hopefully as soon as the family is approved, that you've already got the family partner lined up and ready to go so that there can be an immediate handoff to that person. That also just really helps with communication, and it also takes pressure off the staff who otherwise have to jump in and start asking questions. Because as you know, as soon as a family is approved, they're going to have a ton of questions. So what happens? How do I do this? What's the sweat equity? All those questions start coming. And if a family partner isn't there right then, they're going to have more difficulty engaging and being seen as a resource later on. So Sam, any chats or any questions?
Yes, we do have some questions here. Nathan Ware has a couple questions. The first one is, how involved should volunteers be in family support? And to further describe that, he says, our staff member does virtually all of the work and volunteers are just used in the selection process.
Okay, I think the most critical role, good question, Nathan, thank you. The most critical role is that family partner or family mentor, advocate, whatever you're calling them. And of course, the AOM is going to come out and start calling them the home buyer partners. But that role is very often served by a volunteer and has also been done really effectively. As I said, I think the big piece for that is to not just think of only of your own processes and yes, it might be more efficient to have your staff control all of this, but this is also an area where we could also say it's more efficient if we paid a bunch of pros to come in and build our houses. And part of why we don't is, first, it keeps our costs down, and second, of course, this is something people like to volunteer at doing and also can find it a greatly rewarding personal satisfaction. So this is an area where I would think about, when you're looking at family support, how can we help our volunteers to feel more engaged and give them some life-changing experiences. And again, I think those of you who may have had this chance personally out there or have known people that have done this family partner role is one that can really change a volunteer's life around. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say. I also see people that can help with even, like entering sweat equity hours, and also people very often get involved in the home buyer education classes. That a lot of those can be taught by volunteers, even if they're professional, a banker coming in and helping you, or a budget counselor, or is still very much a volunteer, and it's a great way to leverage your program. So hopefully that helps. We can talk about it more. Sam, is there any other questions?
One more from Nathan. What support services are best to transition to have volunteers take on?
Okay, well, I think I just covered those, but we can talk about maybe when we get to, well, actually, can we open our lines up? Is there anybody out there that has some other ways that they're using volunteers and just wants to identify
You are now unmuted.
and let us know how you're using volunteers?
Okay, we're not muted. So.
Anybody using volunteers out there?
One thing we use volunteers for is selections of colors and, paint, countertops, those kind of selections.
Good. Great. And who is that speaking?
Sorry, Barbara, Montgomery County.
Thank you, Barbara. That was a great idea. Anybody else using volunteers besides the classes and as a mentor? Okay. Well, that's a great one. I really like that, Barbara. So thanks. Okay, well, let's jump down then to sweat equity. So the first thing just to remind people of is Habitat International talks about 3 purposes of sweat equity. And those are building up pride in the ownership, of the home that they are building. They also say that this should be a way for the family to interact and engage with volunteers. Again, we typically think about that means people on the construction site or people.
You are now muted.
But again, the family partner piece is really critical too. You know, I've seen a lot of times where families will send a prospective home buyer out to cut the grass on the lot or maintain some lots around town. And if they're out there all by themselves with that lawnmower, they're not interacting with anyone else. And so, you know, that's again where if there's a way to do that as a part of a larger volunteer activity, that's great. So the third purpose of Sweat Equity is to teach skills and impart skills. I think the gold standard for folks that are using families really well in their process is literally that family is engaged and on the site or able to be on the site from the day that you're digging the hole in the ground. The first day you've got volunteers at the site really should be the first day that a family should be on the site. And at least that opportunity is there for them. Of course, they may not make every single moment of every single thing that happens, but if they can have an understanding of what's going on before the drywall gets in and the roof gets on and all the other stages, they'll have a much better understanding and appreciation of what goes into building a house. And they'll pick up some very valuable skills. So as we all do when we build on the house. And just a reminder, back to the quality assurance, Sweat Equity, you are required to have a minimum of 200 hours of Sweat Equity, and for each family. The recommendation is usually out there to not go over about 500 hours, but I don't believe that they have a hard ceiling on that. And at least 100 hours need to be done on construction, which again is going to feed back into that idea that we want them to learn skills, take pride in their house, and interact with their volunteers. So those are critical things to think about. And you know, I know probably a lot of you are using people around the office and in the restores, and that's great. It's another way to build some skills up. But I think, remember, the primary thing we want to do is have people at the work site as much as possible. So any chats come up on that one, Sam? And again, we can talk about this more later, too.
Yes. Rebecca Logan asks, is there a Sweat Equity minimum requirement for ABWK?
There is not. You know, but there should really be some way of engaging the family. And again, I'll tell a story of one time when I was out with a team and we were working on, there were 15, 20 of us working on this gentleman's house. And I think it was their second or third day they were out there, and I was doing this really nasty job. I was cleaning this squirrel's nest out of where the squirrel had chewed in through the second story, and it was not a lot of fun. And anyways, we never saw the gentleman of the house until about mid-morning, and he came out of the house, and he came out, and he says, "Hey, I want to thank you all for really doing this work. God bless you all." And he got in his car, and he drove away. And that was all we saw of him all day. And I literally stood there and sort of questioned why I was helping out. So that affiliate, I think, did realize that they weren't getting any engagement. And even though there's not a minimum, there needs to be some way that the family's involved and present as they are able. I mean, as I looked at this guy drive away in his pickup truck, I was really wondering exactly why I was cleaning out his squirrel's nest for him and why he wasn't up there on the ladder helping out. So then there was a lot more work going on that day. I mean, there was a big project, but like I say, we did not feel that he had engaged at all, so it is a real vital piece of that partnership in Brush with Kindness. Okay, enough lecturing. Any other chats there, Sam?
I don't see any more questions.
Okay. So we'll jump on home buyer education. Again, the current affiliate operations manual, and I don't think it's going to change, has a pretty good list of courses and things, and we can probably talk about a few of those. But this, again, is really a critical piece of how you, and it's something that didn't used to happen. This is also one of those evolutionary things. We used to think that just bringing people out to the work site and have them do 500, 700 hours of sweat equity, and that was going to be fine. And we've now learned that particularly in the financial areas, the budgeting, money management, some of you may be even using Dave Ramsey courses. There's a whole variety of things that affiliates are doing. There's not a prescribed piece, but it is recommended that there be hours given to doing the classes and making sure that that's a formalized part of your program, whether you're doing them with internal staff and people or whether you're using volunteers or maybe even another partner agency around town. Any chats on that one?
I don't see any.
Okay, thanks, Sam. So we'll go on to
You are
the
now
last little
unmuted.
list here, and then we'll finish up on some things. Matching to a house, again, I think if we had a conversation, if we had you all in a room, we'd have
You are now muted.
everybody does it a little bit differently. Some of the smaller affiliates probably know right where that house is going to be, and I was just reading online in the forums this week about an affiliate that had lost a family in a little small town outside of their main city, and we're having a real problem finding a new family to work with that property, which was already being built. And others of you probably have sort of a tiered structure where you are building a bunch of houses and you may not know which family is going to be assigned to that house until you get along. So that's really, it's a capacity issue of how that works out. Deselection. Okay, well, Sam, any questions on that one pop up?
I don't see any.
Deselection. This is, of course, that not everybody is going to make it through the program. I just want to remind you on the principles of this one. There's 3 reasons that you can deselect: fraud on the application that comes out, failure to meet the expectations or requirements of the application or letter of acceptance, typically around down payments or sweat equity or attending those classes. The other one is a change in financial condition, and it has to be, according to Habitat International, has to be a negative change and a change that's probably going to be permanent, that would reduce their income to such a level that there's just no way that they're going to be able to afford a house. And this doesn't mean, again, I lost my job, I'm looking for a job right now, and you immediately deselect them. It means somebody that, has maybe searched for work for 6 months, 9 months, maybe even longer before you give up on them, or else there just is another change and something that's happened from the qualification income that's just so negative. I literally have worked with affiliates who call me up and say our partner family just was on TV because they just won $250,000 on the lottery, and the board wants to deselect them. And the answer to that is no, we can't. Sometimes those families will pull out. Usually those families will pull out, but it's not up to us to deselect someone who has been approved. They can decide they're going to go get a better house, or they can decide to give away the $250,000. It's not our call. The last one for deselection is if somebody does pop up on the sexual offender database. And I know some of you may be checking that periodically. Some of you may only check it at selection, but that would be a reason to also deselect someone. The family partners or mentors, I think we actually covered that one pretty well. Sam, is there any chats coming up on any of these?
I don't see any.
Okay, good. Just one last note on the deselection. I'm just looking at my notes here. If you are ever at the point of where you are deselecting someone, please, please, please work with your local attorney to make sure you've really come through that well. And checked all, particularly if it's something around like the sexual offender or fraud elements. That's something you should talk through with your attorney. And this would also be a great time to chat with the Affiliate Support Center too, and make sure that they don't see any red flags for your situation. Okay, the last one on this one is finishing well. This is where, we want to make sure that our side of the bargain is completely done as much as possible, that when we say the house is complete, that the house is really complete, that there's hopefully grass growing and trees planted if you do that. The towel bars are all hung up, the paint's all done, and everything is really complete at the house. We want to, even though there may be some warranty issues, doing a final walkthrough and punch list with the family before the dedication is really critical. It's a great time to also just confirm where all their owner's manuals are and some systems operations. We all have probably heard the stories of the family that didn't know that they had an air conditioning system in their house because nobody had ever explained how to run that. And that's unfortunately happened. And we want to make sure that as much as we can, we've got the house as ready as possible so that any warranty or callback issues are really for things that have failed, as opposed to saying, well, because typically, it takes a long time to get back over there and finish up the last little things if you haven't done it. We also want to try and dedicate before we close so that the house is actually still owned by the affiliate and the family has not moved in. So typically it's that punch list, then dedication, celebration, and then the closing occurs after that, which of course then moves us into post-purchase support. Sam, anything come up?
Nope.
Okay. So we're almost to the point here, neighborhood revitalization. I'd like to just think about, what differences might occur if you do a rehab or recycle house. You can save this for a bit of a discussion afterwards. I know I'm working with an affiliate right now that they're doing a bunch of recycles, and there's a lot of people just don't think that's a good idea, that they're really worried that, even though that roof's supposed to have 20 years left on it, the houses they're putting up now have got 40-year roofs. So how do you tear that roof off or not, or how do you take care of that? And as we've already talked about, there's probably the need, depending on how deep a project or long a project you're doing in NR, for some education perhaps, some budgeting, and I appreciate the question earlier that, sweat equity should still be in there. So tools for success. Communication, and to me, in this phase of our relationship and partnership, it just really is most important. I would really encourage you to build your skills up in listening and active listening. This is basic human psychology to some extent. I also want you to really think about celebration, that this is a huge life-changing event for the families, and really do your dedications well. Really celebrate with the families, make them a really joyous community piece of the work. It's a huge accomplishment for the affiliate, for every house that you do, even if you build a couple hundred or whether you've only built a dozen. This is a huge piece. And then again, the confidentiality, so that someone knows that we are not only just protecting basic information like their Social Security number, but that also as they do struggle, that they feel that they can trust you and come to you with a problem. Again, if someone loses their job, you hope that they call you up the day that it happens to let you know, rather than you finding out through the grapevine or something. So those are, I think, the big three things. If you haven't got them, get some written policies, house descriptions, design, option lists, sweat equity. Make sure you've got a good tracking system, very clear policy. Again, the affiliate that I worked with in the Twin Cities, one of the things the staff did is we went from a one-page sweat equity policy to 5 pages. And it became pretty onerous to try and explain sweat equity to the family. They'd have dialed that way back, but we literally sat there. And the calculations for sweat equity based on how many kids, how old are the kids, how many adults, are there any other adults. There were times when I sat there with a family at a home buying visit or a home visit, and they would say how many sweat equity hours, and I'd have to say, I don't know. I don't know how they're calculating it anymore. So hopefully you can get those things clear and simple and straightforward and be able to communicate those with the families, the home buyers. Have a grievance process so that if something isn't working well, it's really clear how a home buyer can make sure that they're being listened to and heard. Have a closing checklist, and I'd say if you don't have a committee, see about getting a committee. So where do you go for help? Affiliate Support Center, Habitat Texas, your neighboring affiliates, My Habitat, those would be the best things. I'm going to close here just with this principal quote from Millard Fuller. Sam, would you read that aloud for me, just so they don't have to keep hearing me?
Sure thing. Habitat for Humanity is about partnership. Our principal partnership, of course, is with God. We feel called to this ministry, and we seek guidance from above in everything we do. One of the most important partnerships we have in Habitat for Humanity is with homeowner families. These folks are not our customers, clients, patients, or our objects of concern because they are less fortunate. Rather, these people are our partners, and we take that partnership very, very seriously.
Thank you, Sam. So with that, I'm going to shut up, and if we can unmute the lines, I'd really like to just, if there's any questions.
You are now unmuted.
Let's start out with those, please. And again, if you can identify who you are and where you're from, and that would be very helpful.
The line is open. So.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, this is Sheldon from Montgomery County Habitat. And
Hi.
I do have a question on the deselection part.
Okay.
Because, so how should we react on some circumstance changes for the current families? So, for instance, if we have a family approved to the program and they are already in the process of earning the sweat equity hours, but how should we react if they come to us and ask if they can if she can get her little brother live with her in the house later?
Okay, so they've already been approved, and now they're asking to add a little brother. Is this a child? Are they under 18?
Yes, it's a child under 16.
Okay, 16. And would this mean that you'd have to change, like you'd have to build another whole bedroom, or would they be able to fit in one of the current bedrooms?
Yes, probably we will need to change the bedroom. Yeah.
Okay, so you'd have to that family won't fit in the house anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn this out to the experts out there. What anybody have that happen? And I'm curious what you did. Anybody have an opinion on or an idea of what they should do? Okay, any best guesses on what they should do? I just don't want to play the expert here all the time. So any guesses on what would you do in your affiliate? Let's put it that way. So
don't be shy, folks.
Nathan Ware's we got a couple of chats coming in. I can just read those. Nathan Ware says, if we had plenty of time, we'd build a bigger house. And Rebecca Logan says, one thing to look at is whether it changes their financial qualification or their debt to income based on a different family size.
Right, because a bigger house would cost more. Both of those were good comments. So, I think this is, the process that I would go through more than anything is talking to the family and saying, well, this does change the application. We'd accepted you with this size family. Now, if this is really something that you have to do, we would want to rerun those numbers, make sure that you do still be able to qualify. And, you know, our whole business is to take you out of substandard housing. So we don't want to put you into a house that's going to automatically be overcrowded and not a good place for your kids. I think that I would engage the family with that and just also be really clear that, you know, this may delay you getting into the house if we have to start all over. You know, maybe you can stick another bedroom on that. Maybe you can't. That you know, they may literally be asked to sort of be put on hold until, if they truly want this child to join them in the house, they may be waiting for a period of time. And, you know, part of why I say all this is that way the family is engaged in the decision and looks at the circumstances and can probably many times help make the decision for themselves of whether they want to wait or whether they want to withdraw the fact that this person is asking to come in. It's a good question. Does that help?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Good. Other questions? So I'm going to flip that one around that we just had. We just heard it was a 16-year-old. Probably some of you have qualified a single woman with some children. And again, I'll tell the story of, you know, when I was working as affiliate support manager. I remember one day I got 2 phone calls from affiliates, and one affiliate called up and said, we just closed on a house, and the next weekend so-and-so moved her boyfriend in, and now her boyfriend's living in the house with her, and we didn't qualify him, we don't know anything about him, and we feel like she misled us that he was going to be living in the house with her. So they were all upset about that. 2 hours later, I got another phone call where the affiliate said, our homeowner just came and announced that she fell in love and she got engaged over Christmas. And she's going to get married, and she wants to know now, since we're building her house, what we do about her fiancé, who she is telling us she wants to live in the house with her and her kids. So, what do we do in those situations? I'm sure some of you have faced those. What have you done in the past? Or maybe this doesn't happen in Texas, it just happens in other places in the country.
It does happen in Texas.
Again, I'll respond. I mean, I think that's a very common occurrence. And the main issue that I have with that, and again, I think it happens with some frequency, is my concern is always, are we just now hearing about that person because, one, is there an issue with our sexual offender check? You know, because obviously once we've closed on the house, we can't really go back and do that easily. Is there an issue there? Is there an issue with these surprise people that appear on income? Is that person going to put them well over income? And is that the reason we haven't heard about them before? Typically, I'm not sure once you've closed on the house, I don't know that there's really anything that you can do at that point. But right. It is troublesome for particularly for those 2 reasons, I think.
Right. So I think people were more upset that this woman, in my experience, that this woman had fallen in love and she was being open about it. She was getting trust in the affiliate and coming forward and saying, here's what happened to me. And, you know, are we going to say, no, you can't get married. You can't fall in love.
No, I mean, I think that's a good thing if she's coming forward and being honest.
Right.
We'd certainly be happy to work with that situation. I think where it becomes troubling is if when you don't learn about it, and the first example you gave, move-in day comes and you've closed on the house and move-in day comes and here comes somebody that maybe others in the neighborhood are reporting back to you is a problem.
Right.
And you realize that they were specifically they knew it was going to be a problem. The homeowner knew it was going to be a problem as well, which is why we didn't learn about that person until after they moved in. I think that's the one I have trouble with.
Yeah. And typically this should all go back to that application and selection process, and hopefully you're building a level of trust and honesty that you feel like you really do know this this potential family.
Well, we've had it happen both ways. Like when the person comes to you and they're honest about it, that's great. You can work with that.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, good. Well, we're almost up to 1 o'clock here. Any other comments or questions?
So I'm curious, how does anybody else have a way of dealing with the kind of issue post-closing?
Must never happen anywhere else.
I guess not.
It's a really tough one, and again, I think hopefully all we can do is pray about it and think about some grace towards this, and hope that it works out. And I think think back to the process of saying, what did we miss? Where could we have found out about this as we were qualifying the family? So that and the answer is you're probably never going to get that 100% right. But it's I guess one of those things that comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other chats or anything out there, Sam?
Not seeing any new ones.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to say thank you then. I've put my contact information up on the screen, and of course all of you know and love Amy, and hopefully she's also a great resource and expert, as is the Affiliate Support Center. And look for those new manuals to come out. And I just really want to say God bless you and thank you. This is tough work, and I appreciate what you do to make those home buying situations happen. So
I know many of you are also registered for the post-purchase homeowner support for Thursday. So you will now know, be forewarned, that lots of questions are ready to be answered if you want to bring some specific questions. And I don't know, George, I'm putting you on the spot here. If we log on, maybe we can spend just a few minutes right before, starting maybe 11:55 on Thursday, if anybody has any follow-up questions from today's webinar. Would that be okay? Please say yes.
Would that be okay? Or yep, for sure. Or feel free to shoot either of us an email. But that's just fine. So.
Yeah, thank you for letting me put you on the spot on that one. And if you have any questions about this on Thursday, then just log on about 5 minutes early. And otherwise, I really appreciate your support, and please let me know if you have any questions in the future. We'll close this out. I will also be sending out the recording of this once it processes. It should be later today or first thing in the morning. So thank you all. And goodbye.
All right. Thank you.